Testing.
Okay, good evening, everybody. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of 1970. What?
I told you you were going to get in trouble.
Jesus. Okay, in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. Should any member of this board have reason to believe this meeting is being held in violation of this act, they shall so state at this time. Hearing none, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, roll call, Karen?
Yes, Mr. Bizarre,
Here.
Mr. Jones,
Here.
Mr. Riggs, Mr. Crowley, Mr. Gorgone,
Here.
Mayor Mullick,
Here.
Deputy Mayor McDade,
Here.
Mrs. Reed, Mr. Lundholm, Mr. Paducis.
Here.
Mr. Crippen.
Here.
Thank you. That's it.
Can we have the resolution for the City of Cape May Municipal Public Access Plan? Anybody care to make a motion to adopt that?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Yeah, we probably should. Let's, on
I read
the
it.
comment portion, let Craig explain it.
So I believe everyone has, as part of your package, a copy of the latest Cape May Municipal Public Access Plan, or the MPAP. So this is something that the city was very proactive in doing when the state, New Jersey DEP, implemented this program. So it was implemented back in around 2015, and on behalf of the city back in 2016, I prepared the original municipal public access plan on behalf of the city. The planning board endorsed it, and we filed that application with the New Jersey DEP. That plan has been sitting idle there ever since. At that time, there were numerous lawsuits with regards to this program, so everything kind of got put on hold. So now we're firing this back up, and the reason we're firing this plan back up, one, it's a good planning document, and two, it's related to your coastal zone management rules and the beach management general permits that are issued for the city. So your beach, beach services, maintenance, the beach fill projects are all tied to this as being one of the requirements for those programs. So it's very important. So this is a 2025 update that brings this plan current with everything that's happened since 2016. It encompasses all of the city projects that have been done for the proposed projects that were included in the 2016 plan. So this is a plan that has not just sat there and collected dust, but the city has been implementing recommendations that were contained in here. It dovetails into our master plan. The master plan has lots of recommendations in here that are included in here. And I'll just take you just briefly through this. So there's an introduction. It just explains the history of the public trust doctrine. And it's pretty much a it refreshes and reminds everyone that you have the right to use the seashore. So this is a plan that deals with access to your tidally flowed waterways. Atlantic Ocean, the Cape Isle Creek, as well as the Cape May Harbor. Yeah, so those are your three bodies of salt water that the city borders on. So this plan deals with any public access. And that public access does not need to be physical. You don't need to be able to get there. It can be visual. We have visual projects. We have parks that have visual access to these waterways, but not necessarily physical. And that's explained within the plan. So those things are dealt with. It talks about the importance of these plans. Gives you an overview of the municipality. This is also an inventory. So in this plan, it has an inventory of all the access points, whether they're physical, visual, etc. It tells whether there's beach badges required, whether there's parking, whether there's ADA accessibility. There's a various inventory. The state incorporates that inventory into their overall public access plan. It's good for that, so that everyone, the public, is aware of all of these things. So moving on, there's municipal public access goals and objectives. Those goals and objectives are echoed in our master plan, so I pulled those out of the master plan and brought those into this plan. And then there's a municipal master plan consistency review. That's what we typically do for any ordinances that are brought before us. Obviously, the plan is bringing forward those planning goals from the master plan, so therefore I can offer you that it is consistent with your master plan. The next section on page 6 is public access. That's a mapping and inventory of all of those locations. And then there is a section for the limitations to public access. So sometimes you want limitations to access. For instance, on Elmira Street, there's a bridge over Cape Island Creek. It's environmentally sensitive. We don't necessarily want physical access in that area because it would damage the environment. So we list those locations of areas where we don't want full access, and state the reasons why those are. But this is an inventory. It explains our promenade, the beach access ways, and there's the next section deals with a community needs assessment. That's essentially what can we do to make access better in the city. And one of the reasons why this municipal public access plan came out is because a lot of North Jersey municipalities had limitations. More private property owner rights that limited, people were just chaining off access ways that existed and had habitually been used, and that became an issue, and that's why this program started. Cape May is not in that situation. We have access almost at every street end that fronts on Beach Avenue. There is an abundance of access to public beaches and waterways within the city. Okay, so within that community needs assessment, they talk about maintenance of the beach programs, the access to those beaches. We talk about the fact that one of the things that we don't have, the city doesn't have, is access to marinas. Public access. Those are handled privately within the city. So we do have private marinas and private, docks, etc. So we recognize that, and we say that this is not the intent of this to provide that. We recognize that that is limited and it's going to be provided by the public. We talk about dredging of the Cape May Harbor and Canal is necessary for boating, that's important. The physical access to Cape May Harbor at Harborview Park, there are proposed plans that are included in this plan. The access need or physical and visual access at Cape Island Creek. We now have the Lafayette Street Park, which is proposing a boardwalk and you know, that actually goes out towards Cape Island Creek. We talk about the lengthening of the asphalt promenade, very important project. And to maintain and improve existing access wherever possible. The city has done numerous ADA accessible accesses along the beachway, the promenade, ADA ramps that have been done along the promenade. All of those things are included in this plan and are proposed and encouraged to be done. So then there's an implementation plan, and from the city's website and from the city engineer, I was able to bring up all of the proposed or current construction projects that are going on within the city, as well as the ones that are proposed. So that section, that is section 19, page 19, 20, 21, 22, and then it goes, and then they have the New Jersey DEP is big on signage. So not only do they want you to have these access, but you have to promote it through signage, making sure that the public is aware that they can access the beach at this location, you know, whatever. So there's signage requirements that are within this plan. So that's a quick summary. There is an appendix. There's a model resolution for incorporating the municipal public access plan into the master plan, and it would be done by reference in the conservation element. But there's kind of that resolution, that draft resolution, that's a template that the New Jersey DEP provides, kind of takes you through the process. So the first step is for us to determine master plan consistency and recommend incorporating this into the master plan and the conservation element. The governing body would next adopt this plan. And I think we've already introduced it, and it'll be on for second reading at the next meeting, is what I understand the schedule is. Then it is sent to the state. It gets listed on the website, and it gets put up for adoption, and there is a public comment period. So public is allowed to comment on it at the state level, and then finally the New Jersey DEP would adopt. And then we have to circle back and incorporate all of those approval dates into this plan. You can see where I highlighted and left draft dates in there, but that's kind of where we're at.
Are there any questions?
That's my quick summary of this.
So I just want to mention, I have talked to Mr. Dietrich. On page 19, under the Harborview Park Plan, the amount that's listed here currently is being verified. It's the amount that the county awarded just for that project is less than this amount. So this amount incorporates the nature trails. So it's just a point of clarification, so.
So that would be a minor edit that
Yeah.
wouldn't need to come back here.
Okay,
That was
just wanted to
taken
mention it.
directly from the website. so.
Yeah,
Okay.
I had a couple of questions. I think it's on page 12, you talk about the parking. I'm not sure that's current as far as the parking, the charges of 25 cents per 10 minutes. Isn't it different around Carpenter, around the mall? And maybe it should say, or as amended, or something like that, so that way, if they ever change the parking rates, meter rates, or even locations of meters, you know, it always be updated.
As established by council.
Yeah, this, we can just add that clause, but this was, once again, what was in there before was the 2016 data, which is way outdated.
Yeah.
I went and refreshed it from whatever information was on the city website.
Right.
There's another one here, if I can
So
find it.
whatever you're telling me is not up to date, the website's not up to date.
The other one, on page 11, just a typo. Next to the picture that's there of the lifeguard station, in the middle, it says, lifeguards and cleanup crews will be getting, the beaches, just looks like a word's missing.
Okay, yes.
And on the next paragraph there, on beach tents and things like that. You know, he said that there are fewer restrictions. Were size restrictions imposed recently?
A long time ago.
Just, I don't know if that needs to be specified in there
I
or
think
not.
it's kind of gray area.
Yeah.
There are a few restrictions on beach tents. So if there's a restriction,
Yeah,
so long as there's not
Okay.
any, there's few.
Right,
So,
yeah, that's sufficient.
maybe that's it. No, that's it.
Okay.
are there any other recommended changes or revisions?
We care to make a motion to adopt?
Do we already have a
Oh,
motion?
we do have that. We have it, we've been in discussion, okay? So, do a roll call vote?
Okay, we have motion by Deputy Mayor McDade, seconded by Mr. Crippen. Mr. Gargone?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McDade?
Yes.
Mr. Bedusis?
Yes.
Mr. Crippen?
Yes,
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Becerre?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is just to go over the zoning board's annual decisions, the list of their decisions. And the reason we're looking at this is to see if there's a pattern of approval for something that might warrant addressing in our ordinances. Several years ago, we decided non-conforming houses and non-conforming lots, for what was being done, did conform, there was no variances needed.
Yes.
So,
I can illustrate that. So this is used by the planning board to recommend ordinance changes within the zoning code. What Bill was referring to was several years ago, there was a pattern, because of all of the undersized lots within the city, someone couldn't just go build an addition onto their house, even though that addition totally conformed with lot coverage, building setbacks, every other aspect of zoning, but because it was on an undersized lot or width or area, it was required to go to the zoning board, and the zoning board was essentially rubber stamping those applications. So changes were made to the ordinance. I know Rich was involved in crafting that language, and the zoning board stopped seeing those things just coming in, and it almost became a nuisance to developers that were trying to develop conforming additions and, onto their houses, so there was a substantial change made that made that process a lot better.
The local zoning attorney still haven't forgiven me for that. Because took away a lot of easy business.
Because of the money being.
I've heard that from
Yeah,
now, I do have a question about this. There's still, on over half of these, there's still.
lot size.
Lot size.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, so.
What's-
And I can explain that. So what the ordinance says is that you are not required to get those variances if your development totally conforms with every other aspect of, so essentially says you don't need lot size, lot width, or lot frontage if you conform.
okay,
So
that's
if you
it,
don't, then it brings it back into play.
gotcha.
doesn't make sense.
But it makes a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah, because you're going to see variances on lots that are small, because that's where you bump up against the side yards. So most of your lots that come in for variance, remember, this isn't the planning board, it's the zoning board. So it's like someone putting on a little addition or something like that. They're usually on lots that are already overdeveloped a little bit anyway. They're smaller lots with bigger things on them. So they're the ones that come in more often. And now they have a little ENC next to them, existing nonconformities. They're never decided on the base of lot area, but there's always other issues with them. So you're seeing lot area on there, or lot size on there, but then you're seeing 4 other violations along with it. So, fronted, setback. So they're just smaller lots, that's where these things come up. Huge lots don't have a lot of side yard variances, okay, it's just how it is. So these aren't, there's nothing to be done, in my opinion, about
Okay.
lot size on those. There is one thing we could talk about, which is solid fences. We had an application a month or 2 ago where I learned for the first time that solid fences are permitted and are permitted in the front yard, which,
To a height of 4 feet.
to a height of 4 feet.
Right.
Solid 4-foot fences in the front yards in Cape May, I don't think is a look you're going for. So I just said we should bring that up to the planning board. I mean,
The actual primary front, not a corner.
front yard.
A front yard, even if it's,
No, I understand. I'm just trying to clarify whether or not it was street front, meaning from the primary, from the address from the front of the house, or was this a side, was this
Well,
a
this particular
corner?
instance doesn't matter much. in my
Okay.
opinion, But I'm telling you, that one had 3 front yards, so if you.
Okay, all right.
This is the kind of stuff we get, so it was a little crazy, it was down in that Velvento stuff. But that was how we learned, because they were putting it in, they were putting it at the end of Velvento, but facing, what is that, Pennsylvania, what is that?
No.
No, New
facing
York, New
north,
York.
essentially.
or Brooklyn. one of the two.
Yeah, so there, all those houses on Velvento, this was this property's side yard. So you would have looked down the front yards on Velvento, and there would have been a solid fence in what appears to be the front yard, even though it was the side yard of this house. And that's when I learned that you can have solid fences in front yards, 4 foot high, up to the
Yeah.
setback, so.
It's, and that issue is not as big a deal in the historic district because that's in no way, compatible with the historic streetscape, so they typically do not get approved. But outside of the historic area, you're allowed to put a solid 4-foot fence right up against the right-of-way line or the property line. So, and the zoning board asked, I think they made a request that we consider looking at that.
No one liked that idea.
Yeah.
So the next step, if you agree that that might not, that's just kind of a whole, a tweak in our zoning ordinance, you should ask Craig to draw up a proposed ordinance thing, and I'll look at it to make that clear.
So you're suggesting that the fences that are not solid would be allowed, but solid fences wouldn't be? That's almost that's almost a design criteria as opposed to a zoning.
No, there are zoning ordinances, actually, a lot of them have an opaqueness requirement that says they have to be, 50% open. Just to allow, and that's a light air and open space, that's a zoning issue.
Well, that sounds a better way to do it than just not to say
Yeah.
no fences in the front yard.
So, yeah, I would.
That was
Say,
solid fences were the issue, right?
Well,
Right.
he's saying opaque, if it's 50% open.
Yeah,
It has,
that
yeah,
would-
for light air.
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
That should be incorporated
Okay.
into the
Well, that-
language.
Maybe put something.
So I will, I'm working on
Everybody-
a lot of changes for you with the other stuff, so I will bring that into our conversation and.
Is everybody on board with that?
Yeah, I'm just curious why they had that in the first place.
Because it was just never, it was never noted that it should be
If it's
excluded.
not disallowed, it's allowed.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Got it.
Any other comments on the,
The zoning board also wanted you to consider zoning for pools regarding the distance from principal structures. They had 2 things they wanted you to consider.
Okay, I think what that was about is this. We have a 10-foot requirement from a principal structure for a pool. So you have to have 10 feet between the pool and the principal structure. Whenever that comes up, they ask Craig why that rule is there, and then Craig gives the history of it, that it had to do with firefighting, and that they wanted room to put a ladder up. But other members of the board say, well, that might be one reason, but we also think there should be a space all around the pool for emergency access, so that you don't have a pool right up against the house, so that if someone's drowning or falls in over there, you can't get over to it and have a place to pull them up onto the side.
We're jumping off of balconies.
Right. So, but the problem is that right now, it appears that the intent of that ordinance relates to firefighting. So we'll have people come in and talk about firefighting issues, or if they put a hard cover over the pool that can hold firefighting stuff, then they don't need, they believe they don't need the 10 feet. But it seems to me that there's additional reasons for that. So we need a statement.
I thought the reason was more about people jumping in from balconies than it was from, I mean,
I do recall
I was there
that
when all that
application.
happened. It was
Yeah, yeah.
Arnold Pittman.
It was Arnold Pittman, and it was the reason he cited, because that was a recommendation from the zoning board at that time to the planning board to make that, to incorporate that 10-foot separation. And it was based solely on the, getting a ladder up to those windows or the back of the houses in emergency situations. It was, none of this other stuff was mentioned, but I think the zoning board feels it's important that the reason should be stated in the ordinance for it. So if they're granting a variance, the applicant has to demonstrate that they're at least addressing that.
Craig, is there anything else, while we're doing that, is there anything else you think we should do on that with regard to what is part of the principal structure? Because we had that issue about the deck attached, not attached. Is there something we should do about
You're
that?
talking about the patios attached?
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, so what becomes gray area in evaluating these pools, your pool setbacks are not only to the pool, they're to the patios. It says pools and patios connected. So a lot of applicants now, because it says connected, are disconnecting it with a little grass strip of 1 foot wide, and it's really still part of the pool. I mean, it's my opinion that that pool setback for the patios is because it's a commotion, it's a privacy issue, and they want to step back that activity that is associated with that use, that pool use, has to have the setback. And now we're getting applications that are, they're putting a little strip of grass in, and it's really connected to the.
Well, if the issue was firefighting, the patio should.
No, this is a separate zoning control,
This is not one of your pool activity right next to your side yard.
right?
This is in aesthetics, this is in, and.
There are-
Now you're not talking about the distance from a house, you're talking about distance to a.
This is the
Craig-
side yard
Craig
setback,
went-
rear yard
Craig
setback.
went to something that was not what I intended to talk about. I was talking about, has to be 10 feet from the principal structure.
So is a
Okay?
deck.
But sometimes they
principal
put decks,
Yeah.
you know, you come out onto a deck and then there's a pool.
Right.
And we consider that deck part of the principal
Or
structure.
you have steps coming down, which that's not, that doesn't affect the firefighting access part. So if you wanted to define that it's from the main, face of the main structure,
From the
Right,
wall.
If we're going to say that it's not just firefighting, then it needs to be so that there's a flat area around the pool that's 10 feet. And having it up against a 4-foot deck, you couldn't rescue somebody from that end of the pool. You couldn't get there. Envision a deck 4 feet in the air with a railing on it, right? And then there's a pool flat up against it. Anything that happens over there, you have no direct access to that area of the pool. But what they say, well, it's not a firefighting hazard because it's only a deck, but it's like, well, yeah, but it's still up against a structure that you can't get all the way around the pool.
well, pools aren't that big to begin with. I mean, if you can access a pool, I mean, I have a pool, you can access, if somebody, I don't have a deck around my pool, but you got 3 sides that are open, you're gonna be able to access to get somebody if there's an issue going on.
Yeah.
I think we're overkilling this thing personally. I don't know, I just,
Yeah, most of these residential pools are, 10 by 20.
yeah.
They're fairly small. And like I said, there's at least 3 sides to get to it,
We
by and
haven't
large.
had a situation yet where somebody
No.
couldn't get anybody in. First of all, we haven't had a drowning in town.
I don't, this is policy, not, I don't vote, okay, so you guys do whatever you want with pools. I can tell you the very clear sense on the zoning board is that pools are a very impactful use, and they believe they should be limited to the yards that can very easily accommodate the pool. Otherwise, it ends up being a pool that is not just in one backyard, but in 4 backyards. So your sense that, oh, we want to make pools easier to be constructed and even on more densely improved lots is not the consensus of the zoning board, in my experience.
Well, I think the question is the 10 feet a safety issue like you just brought up, or is it a firefighting issue? Which is also a safety issue, but, which is it? Is it both, or is it?
I think having been on the zoning board when some of these applications come up, I think it really comes down to an issue of density, of where these things are being placed in proximity in the lot and the, overflow into a neighboring property. Most of the time, people are concerned about that. And so I think what it doesn't address is the issue of quality of life for the surrounding areas, the surrounding homes, and especially if these are rental properties, et cetera, not to be disparaging against that, but it's just, that's what they're looking at, and that's what they're hearing from the people who are coming to testify. So,
The 10 feet thing almost encourages people to put the pools further away from the house. If you would encourage it to be closer to the house,
Requires you to have a yard that can hold the pool.
well, that's a lot coverage.
A lot of these pools are going to,
The governing body has addressed the ordinance as it relates to some buffering. There are now landscaping requirements. We have not, I get to inspect these after they're approved, and there hasn't been many that have been done yet, but I've seen a couple, and the buffering is much better than what there was no buffering requirements now, before. And now we're seeing the buffering. I believe that it's a significant improvement. So a lot of our pool problems are from the existing ones, and I think the governing body has listened to the zoning board and the planning board recommendations and incorporated that. I don't know whether that's going to be enough or not. That, time will tell, but there has been steps taken.
can I make a suggestion? I don't think any of us, well, I can't speak for anybody else. I know I'm not a pool expert. I do know I've never seen a commercially designed pool of any size that didn't have space all around it for emergency access. I've never seen one. So, but I don't know the rules. So maybe Craig could, he is an engineer. He's not just a planner, he's actually is a real engineer. He could actually look and see if there are safety requirements that have that 10-foot around, not just for fire, but for other reasons. And then you could decide it based on
Right.
science.
Fair enough.
And if it turns out that it's just for firefighting, then at least we know, but I can tell you the board has expressed some frustration that they believe it's for other reasons. But the historical is just fire, so they get stuck with it.
Any other comments on the zoning boards? Nope. Okay. Payment of bills, motion to pay the bills?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Crippen motions, Mr. Gorgon seconds. Mr. Gorgon?
Yes.
Mayor Malik?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McDade?
yes.
Mr. Bedusis?
Yes.
Mr. Crippen?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Bezera?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything else for the good of the order?
Did we approve,
Go Birds.
did we approve our dates
We did last
week?
This is just final copy.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, final motion? Final motion?
I'll make a
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, and good night.
So next week, we're going away for 2 days. I just remembered that.
Well, next week, my brother's in town.